Welcome to the Stat Guy Show, episode number 15. Tonight I have two guests with me. The man who won Street Wars, Aaron Lopez, and the man who put it all together for Team J-Rod, Jared Holt. How you guys doing?
Good. And as you see at the bottom, it's
Doing
Holt,
well.
not Holly. You put Holly.
Close enough.
It's all good. The Y and the T are right next to each other.
Thank y'all for coming on, man. I know you guys are really busy tonight, especially. What do you guys got going on right now? Where are you guys at exactly?
So I'm currently in my RV right now. We're actually, J-Rod was just with me. We're at TX2K in Baytown, Texas.
Yeah.
Might be racing here momentarily, so I might have to excuse myself. We'll try to get as much of this interview off as we can. They called our classes up here shortly, so we're both racing. We're racing two different classes. I'm racing a stick shift class, and J-Rod's racing a streetcar class. So I'm still here. He had to go for the evening. We thought it was going to get rained out. Fortunately, it hasn't. So I'm sitting here waiting. My car is sitting right out here in the trailer, ready to go. So I'll see how much we can do here.
He's a lot more hardcore than I am. I wanted to go have dinner.
That's true. I can go without eating. So yeah, I get told that. It's like, oh, you don't eat the racetrack. I don't. I guess I just forget to eat. Got so many other things to do. So
yeah. So you guys are at Texas 2K. So for people who don't know, what is it and how long have you guys been racing that event?
Texas 2K is like arguably the largest streetcar reunion race in the country or the world. I mean, I think Peter started the event in 2003 as a super event, and it's morphed into what it is today as the ultimate streetcar. I mean, you've got 3,000 horsepower Lambos and GTRs on property, and you've got Vipers and Supras and Hondas and McLarens and Cobras and I mean, there's something for everybody here. I've personally been coming here since 2009, and I only street raced from 09 to 16, and then it just got too hot on the streets, so we took it to the track, and now it's a premier drag racing event.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I've been watching it. I'm here in San Antonio. I'm from San Antonio. It's always been in Houston. I was in Sealy beforehand, so I've been a fan at 2K for years, probably since 08, 09. I recently just started racing when it started coming to Royal Purple Race or Houston Raceway Park, where we're at right now. Like J-Rod said, it's turned into like a premier race event, and Peter Block, and then he got Jason Miller in with it. And the track prep, usually the weather's really good. This track's always been fast, and you can kind of set records. So that's always another thing. He started a stick shift class, is kind of what I race in. That's a really cool class. It's no rules, stick shift. That's it. It's just got an H pattern stick. So the variety in that class is really cool. You have trucks, cars, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, front wheel drive, it doesn't matter. So you'll see some really good racing in stick shift. The stick shift class has come a long way here these past few years. These guys are flying out there now.
Does that mean that you won the show with the stick shift?
Matter of fact, I sure did. I still H pattern, still has a clutch pedal. The car leaves on a clutch, and still have to roll through the gears. I've never raced an automatic car. Not to say that I won't, but I don't know. I just have a blast. It's still fun to me, and gives me something to do going down the track, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And you are not racing. I saw your page today. You're not racing the Honda you had on the show. You're racing something else today?
No, so I haven't said much about that. So I am actually. So I got two cars out here today. So I just debuted a new car today. It's kind of been a secret. I didn't really want to say much about it, partly because I didn't have time to keep up with the social media. If I started leaking things about it, I'm terrible with it. And I always joke, I'm only one man. I can only do so much. So I got some good people behind me, but I can't be on my phone all day and try to answer questions. So I just kind of kept it secret and was just able to just hunker down in the shop and get this car done. So I built a 2001 Honda Prelude. It's a complete street car. So there's pictures going around the internet. You'll see if they're not already out there. So I brought my race car with me, which is a street car for the show. It's 100% street car. Yes, it was my race car, but it can be driven on the street. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to do some other stuff. I want to do some dragon drives. I think Jero talked about a little earlier beforehand, but been wanting to do it for a couple years now to build a car that maybe doesn't need the maintenance or requirement as my race car at that level. Just something I can have fun in, because, man, the faster you go, the less you race your car and the more you work on it. So it's a job. Like it's a full-time job, and I mean I love it, but it's a lot of work, and I wanted to build something we could just jump in and go cruise around, and then maybe just drag and drive stuff, go race with our friends, and this opportunity on the show came about, and it was kind of perfect timing, and if and when maybe there's an opportunity to do it again or something like that, I have a car that will be 100% street. I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures yet, there's not going to be a sticker on it. It's a pretty sleeper looking car, so it's pretty cool. I kind of built this car to wanted it to look like, just subtle, nothing fancy, unsuspecting, completely opposite of my race car because it's got a wrap on it and stickers and stuff like that. But like I told Doc on the show, I said the stickers don't make it any faster. If the stickers weren't on the car would run the same. Unfortunately, there are sponsors and stuff like that. They were all on there, but this one's going to be just a normal little looking car that runs very well. That's the plan.
Cool, man. It's definitely looks deceiving for sure. Because it looks just like a normal car. I saw that. Yeah.
Once the hood's closed, I mean, besides the tires and wheels, that gives it away. But the hood's closed. I mean, you can't tell the thing. Which was cool.
So let's
Sorry,
talk
I'm
about
sitting in my truck.
Let's talk about Street Outlaws. J-Rod, how did it come about that you guys got onto the show? How did that conversation go?
Yeah, I've known all those guys since, I think I said on the show, since I was a kid, 19, 20, 21 years old. And, we're buddies, and obviously they've progressed and become what everybody knows of them today, but I still know them as, my friends. And so Sean had reached out to me and he goes, hey, we're putting together this street show. We're kind of getting away from the big tire pro mod style racing that kind of got stagnant where everybody's racing the same people the same week for the same spots on the list. He goes, we want to do something where, we go back to our roots. We're going back to the original, and we want you to be a part of that. And so I was like, oh, absolutely. I am down, because rewind 2014-15, me and Chief were talking, and he goes, hey, we know that, you're OG, blah, blah, blah. We want you to possibly give a shot at the list. Well, at the time, the list wasn't as fast as what it ended up being. And so I was a normal guy with normal pockets. So it took me about 2 years to build a car that was going to be competitive, what I thought was going to be competitive. Well, in those 2 years, the show just absolutely exploded in popularity and, more sponsors, more money, cars were just continually getting faster and faster and faster. So I built this car, but couldn't do anything with it. So I started racing World Cup finals and Texas 2K and all these events. So I was just hoping one day that they would do this. And sure enough, they did. January of last year, Sean called me and he's like, hey, we're going to do this, put together a team. And we know you're not going to bring a bunch of Fox bodies and, Camaros. He goes, you're kind of the local import guy and we're interested to see what you bring. So I did, I reached out to Aaron. I reached out to Miles with the Integra, my buddy Sean and Betty with the Subaru, and, Felicia. And, I could talk about the team forever, but, that's one thing I've said before in a few interviews. I wasn't trying to put the fastest team together. Mm-hmm. To me, like the people, the car, their personalities meant more to me than having the fastest gutted Fox body or whatever, like Aaron's a great guy. He's humble. He carried himself well on TV. Felicia was amazing on TV. We all we didn't change who we were for the camera. And sometimes that happens to people, this producers, they don't, a lot of people, I'll read the comments. Oh, that show's scripted. It ain't scripted. Will they say, hey, talk a little shit here and there? Sure. Absolutely. But, as someone that's not a normal cast member, like Lopez and I, we just had fun with this deal and we put a lot of effort and a lot of time into making these cars work. And, our effort prevailed at the end. If you think about it, every import on my team, besides Miles, who went red, won. We beat those guys, and Aaron went undefeated on the entire season. And it's just crazy to think that you can take a 4-cylinder. A lot of people said his car weighed 2,200 pounds. I think his car weighed like 2,900 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
2,963.
You add all-wheel drive, you add a cage, you add all those things. It adds a lot of weight to that car. And, it's just super cool to be a part of it because, like I said, as a kid growing up with those guys, getting to be a part of it now, and being competitive and having a car that I know can get down on the street was just a cool deal for sure.
Yeah. How they present the rules to you guys? Was there like a long list?
That was kind of a clusterfuck, to be honest. So, Sean had given me some, guidelines, and then Chuck had given me some guidelines, and they were like nowhere near the same. So at first they told me no all-wheel drive. So I already had like some GTRs lined up and some other cars, and they're like, no all-wheel drive. Well, then I called Sean one day. I was like, hey, like, what's the deal with this no all-wheel drive? He goes, I don't care if it's all-wheel drive. He goes, bring whatever. It just can't run on a slick or like, a Mickey Thompson Pro tire. It's got to run like this certain Mickey Thompson SS radial is what they gave us. But like Aaron, for instance, he didn't even run that tire. You ran like a Toyo, didn't you?
Yeah, I ran like a road race tire. It was a Toyo R888, and then I went to an RR afterwards just because,
right.
They limited us to that Mickey Thompson ET Street SS. It was the only one they said we could run, and I couldn't get the tire size. So little did people know I had 3 weeks from when J-Rod contacted me to when we were filming, which was nuts. And my car was sitting in the shop, just sitting there, and I was actually packing my bag to go to Vegas. And he contacts me and kind of didn't really ruin my vacation, but let's just say my mind was elsewhere during my vacation. I went from, having clicks on the car to trying to find tire, wheel, who has stuff in stock, some company, back order, just trying to find tires. And then, 3 weeks from the day he contacted me to like film, that means you have to test and then shipping and get things in. So man, it was nonstop, and I couldn't find some of the tire sizes I wanted. And then I went with R888, and I mean, it's a hard tire. Like there's no sidewall give, no nothing there. We ran that on the first show, and then I went to that RR on the second one, which may be a little better, about the same. But like you said, that it really dumbs the all-wheel drive cars down. So I mean, Sean was right. Yeah, all-wheel drives can run, but not on a slick. And I mean, I could only wish to let us run on a slick. The car would run much better, but it can't be. You saw how fair it was. I mean, it was an even playing field. I mean, the race in the finals, you couldn't ask for a better race. I mean, it's crazy how such different combinations came down to hundredths of a second. If it was a scoreboard there, an ET clock, it would have been hundredths of a second. So that
was crazy to witness.
Great racing. You couldn't have scripted it, like he said. It's not scripted at all, not whatsoever. And that's like the number one question I get asked from people. Say, "Oh man, you're on the show, cool. Like, how scripted was it?" I said, "Man, it felt like a normal race, but with cameras." And then you forget the cameras are there too, which is great. I think the producers intervened once the whole time, and that was just because our two teams were too close together. And for the camera, I couldn't tell the difference between our team and the 405. And other than that, you had no idea the producers were there. At the beginning, they told us, like you said earlier, I kind of joke about it. One of the guys says, if you're a 2, be a 4. If you're an 8, be a 10. I say I'm like a 3, and I was maybe like a 3.5. I don't change. I told the safety guy, he's like, man, don't do any hero stuff. You're on TV. Don't do anything crazy. I said, unfortunately, this is all you're going to get. This is what yeah, people say that all the time. They say they're not going to change when they get on the show. And fortunately and unfortunately, it worked out for me, and I just stay who I am. It's easier that way for me than to try to be a different person. But as for the realism of the show, it's 100% real. What you saw there is what exactly what happened. And watching the show back live, just this past week, not live, just on TV, it was you don't get to see a lot when you're there. You have no idea. I had no idea they were talking about me that much.
Of course they're talking about you.
But I had no idea. And apparently they were worried about it. And I said it. I think I said it on the show. It's like going into a race and being number one qualifier is like the worst thing. And I've been number one qualifier a lot of times at some other races I've been to, and it's like you're expected to win. Like if you're the fastest guy there, oh well, that car's gonna win. It's like, man, it's drag racing, anything can happen. Like,
but they really thought that orange Midnight Performance truck was the fastest truck on the property, and it may have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your car was just more consistent.
And that was it. I wasn't. I'll admit, I probably wasn't the fastest car there that night. And then I said it time and time again. Producer didn't believe me, but it was going A to B every pass. And that's all it took. I cut a good light. I'm not gonna lie. I think I won 2 or 3 of those races on the light, and I knew I had to. Every car was fast. Every car was capable of beating me. So I wasn't gonna give them anything.
Yep.
You have to.
Right. So I know the 405 raced at a couple different spots throughout that season. When you guys raced against them as a team, was that the same spot you raced at for Street Wars too? Or
no, we raced in Chickasha the first night, which was their second night on that road. And it was a blacktop road in the middle of nowhere right next to an airport. And by the time we got to Street Wars, we were back in Elk City, which is where they had already filmed, as you guys seen on the show, several other nights. So they had lots of data on that road. Aaron and Felicia had zero data on that road.
Yeah.
But man, like me as a racer looking at that road after one or two passes compared to Chickasha, fuck, my car would have flown down that road. Like the road was that much better. And that's what they were trying to stay away from. They were trying to get several different roads so that wouldn't happen, because that road basically was turning into Okima. The road that they filmed for 4 or 5 years on Okima, towards the end of that run, those cars were cutting stupid 60 foots on that road. Stupid. So, that was another deal. And I'm sure that'll get brought up in the comments or whatever, is why I didn't race. And, the Street Wars is my cage. The original call was shortly after we raced on a Wednesday night, and Street Wars was the following week. So we had like 10 days or something. So, Ryan and Sean and Mike, the producer, had called me, and they're like, "Hey, you're in. You get to pick one person as well as yourself to race." And of course, instantly I said Aaron. And they're like, "Okay, cool. We'll get you put down." And then the next day they called me back and they go, "We got some bad news." I'm like, "What do you mean?" They go, "You can't race. You're going to have to put someone in your spot." I go, "Well, what do you mean I can't race?" Well, see, at the beginning of the season, everybody had the same rules. You couldn't have a funny car cage in your car. Well, my car has a funny car gauge because it goes 190 plus in the quarter mile. Yeah. Well, Chuck cut his out. Justin McMurtry cut his out. Aaron cut his out. Other guys cut theirs out. And I just wasn't willing to do that because I had to get my car recertified so quickly. And Sean's like, "You know what? Just bring it. I'll race you. It won't be that big a deal." Well, they'd forgot about that. And when they'd pick me to race in cash days, they couldn't let me. Looking back on it, I was pretty upset when they told me. I was real pissed. But now I understand, because they would have let me race with the funny car cage. It would have opened up a can of worms they couldn't have put out. Like everybody would have bitched about it. Everybody would have bitched about it. And at that point I go, "You know what? Fuck it. I'll cut it out." And they're like, "Well, no, you can't do that because you didn't do it at the first." So, I kind of screwed myself on that deal, but realistically, I was totally fine with an import going. And, I just wanted an import to win, whether it's me or Miles or Sean or Aaron or whoever. And, I don't know. It's just, to me, like, I see the import deal as a pretty big deal. Like, we've never had a stage this big to race on. We go out there and we performed really, really well. And Aaron wins it all. And like, I've said this to a few other people, they don't have Chevys, Fords, and Dodges in Chile and Brazil and Costa Rica. They got Nissans, Hondas, and Toyotas. Like, the demographic of racer around the world is way more drawn to the imports than they are Chevys, Fords, and Dodges. Right. So like, as Street Outlaws as a whole, if the powers to be realize that, it's going to be a pretty cool deal, because now these guys in these third world countries, or, other countries in general, are going to have somebody to root for. They got that Nissan Sentra, or they got that B16 Honda Civic, or they got a 1JZ Toyota Supra, whatever they have. They got somebody to root for now. And I think that's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Doc had hit on that last week on the show. He was saying, not only the imports, you guys being on the show will help you guys. It'll open up a whole new
fan base for the show.
Set of racers, whole new fans, everything for the show. Yep. So I think you guys are both helping each other out. Honestly.
Oh, absolutely. And, if we get the opportunity to go back and do it again, if the season 2 happens, people are going to know that imports are on the show. They're going to be like rooting for us. We're not going to fly. Yeah, we're not flying under the radar this year. We're going to have a fucking target on our back. Huge. And they're not going to want to just beat us. They're going to want to bury us. So like, it's going to be crazy to see if it happens. But yeah, like, the import deal is just neat. A lot of the hardcore Street Outlaw fans, they're pretty hardcore American muscle people. Reading the comments about lawnmowers and, this and that and rice burners. I get it. I've got domestic cars too. But at the end of the day, we like the same stuff. We just do it differently.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. That was one thing, going on the show. There had been some imports on the show and a long time ago, and I knew someone Morris was one of them, and no, but they did well, but there was, I guess, I don't know how to say it. Nobody's really, I don't know. Let me see. Nobody's, I guess, did it to where we did it, to where just put it at, let me see. How would I word this? So
you put an exclamation mark on the imports. That's what you did. Because exactly. Like when a Morrison then did, the only car that won was the DSM. It's because Chuck spun. And if Chuck doesn't spin, that DSM gets fucked up. So like it is what it is. Like they went out there, they gave it their all. The Toyota broke, and they didn't fare very well. And now if we can just ride this whole import versus domestic thing even further, it's just going to be such a cool rivalry. I'm really excited to see where it goes, and hopefully we get to come back, and because I think it's going to be really good TV.
Yeah, and I wanted to just show that we could play too, and I had a good conversation with Doc at the top end of the track, and I kind of wish they would have showed it on the show. And I'll be honest. I mean, he drove around me. His car was flying at the end. I mean, he put the tune-up in it, and
yes,
I thought he clipped me. I got there maybe an inch before him, but I got the win, which is awesome. But at the moment, I thought for sure he won, and we had a good conversation at the top end of the track. And I told him, I said, Doc, you realize that we have the same passion for the sport. We do the same thing. We just race 2 different cars. That's it. We put the same amount of money, the same amount of time. Mine happens to be an import. Yours happens to be a domestic. And he took a second, thought about it, and just, understood. And we talked a few minutes up there, and they're probably wondering why we were up there so long. Just partly because it was such an awesome race. And so we're the same, and I just wanted to, going on the show once Jared gave me the opportunity, and it's like, well, let's just show, imports can go rounds, built right, they can go rounds. And back in the day, I built this car in 2004, the car I raced on the show. And so it's been around 19 years, and I was never the fastest. Not that I didn't want to be, I was just known as kind of like Mr. Consistent. Like, that's it. Like, imports would break, and back then we didn't have these upgraded axles that we have now, drive shaft stop, and all these companies that are behind us. And it just took us a little time to catch up, and you'd go up there and think, oh, don't worry about that car. He's not going to make the next round. He's not going to make the next round. And there's guys that would push their stuff to the limit to where they wouldn't make the next round, Mine would be, quick enough, qualify well, whatever. But it would come back round after round after round. And next thing you know, you're the last man standing, whether you were the fastest or the last car running, and that's just how it worked, and now that these companies have stepped up, and we have a lot of big names behind these cars now, and just like domestics have been around for so long that the cars can be reliable, built right. The cars are going to go, they're going to go round after round after round. And that's what I wanted to show is that, car built right. That's it. I mean, it's no different between the domestics and the imports, and then it just comes down to driver and tunability and all that there, and no issues, and that's what we were able to prove. And that was super cool.
To me, that was what was cool, is because I feel like the import versus domestic thing is a lot of a generational deal. Guys that grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they didn't have fast imports. They weren't, they were cars that got 40 miles a gallon that were shit boxes. And so, I've talked to Doc about this even that night, and he's like, hey, it's not that I don't dislike imports. It's like, I grew up in the 80s, hair metal bands, Monte Carlos, Chevelles, Camaros, like American muscle cars. And I get it. Like Aaron and I think you're born in 84 too, right?
84, yep.
Yeah. So Aaron and I are the same age. We're the Fast and the Furious age, right? And when we were in high school, that movie came out. Yeah. And as bad as this sounds, that movie had a huge influence in me. I had the car with street glows and stickers and a fart can and a muffler that was 14-second, just god awfully loud for no reason car. Yeah. But as I grew up and I started making money and started wanting to go fast, I never got away from where I started. I stayed true to who I was, I mean, there was a path there where I bought a twin turbo Viper, which I still have, and I raced it and blah, blah, blah. But I stayed true to the imports. The 3000 GT platforms what actually started it for me. I still have that car, but I think it's, the more I think about it, it's a generational deal. You would never see Dominator driving an import, right? He's a hardcore American muscle dude. Of all those people on the show, thinking in my brain, I think Kamikaze and Asian are about Aaron and I's age. I think they're 38, 39. And so Asian, he's got a dung beetle with a Subaru motor in it. I don't know if you knew this, but Sean, the guy that raced the Subaru on the show, put the Subaru in the dung beetle. He's the one who built that car. Okay. And so the more I really thought about it, it's a generational deal. It's a generational gap. And,
those are our race cars. Those are our performance cars, that's just like the generational back. And then their Chevelles and their Camaros, and that was their sports car, I run a Honda Prelude engine, an H22. So that was in my Civic, and so everybody, all our Hondas, you did motor swaps. I know J-Roy runs a Supra, but the Toyota Supra came with a great engine, and so for the Hondas, it was to pull a higher horsepower engine and put it in a lighter car, and so the H22, I put this in my car in 2004 is when I built the car, like I said, but I had this motor since 2001, and you just put the highest horse. Our sports car was a Honda Prelude. That was the highest horsepower motor that Honda made at the time, and then put it in a lighter chassis, and that was our muscle car, and that's our generation. It just happened to be imported.
And if you look at that now, like the guys that, let's say Doc's age, that was maybe Aaron and I's age in the 2000s, the Chevelles, the Barracudas, the Superbirds, the Challengers, the old Hemis, that's when the muscle car craze started, right? When they hit 25, 30 years old. We're experiencing that same boom for those 90s JDM imports. The RX-7, the 300ZX, the 3000 GT, the Skyline, the Supra. Those cars are fetching, the Integra Type R. They're fetching $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. It's the guys that are 35 to 50 that are in a position in life that have some money that want the car that they grew up with, playing Gran Turismo, watching them on Fast and the Furious. That's how we got introduced into cars. Doc and those guys got introduced from cars from, looking at them on the showroom floor, their older brother or their dad or Hot Rod Magazine and stuff like that. Well, we grew up with the internet. Aaron and I were probably the first generation that had the internet, from the time we were, high school. The internet came out, really was a big deal when we were in high school. So it's just, the more, literally talking on this interview, I've realized it's a generational deal. It really is.
I agree, man. I agree. Hey, Aaron, I want to talk a little bit more about Street Wars for you, and
sure.
I want to know where your confidence level was at. Did you ever think like, hey, I have a really good chance of winning this? Was that like at the beginning? Was it when you beat Damon later on? Because Damon had a really fast Mustang that whole year. Did you, or were you coming in like, hey, like I think I got the fastest car here, and I think I got a good chance of winning it?
No,
that's not Aaron.
Yeah, it's not me. Yeah, I can have the fastest car on numbers, and I'll still say I don't have fastest car. And it doesn't matter. Like numbers are not. I mean, maybe you're a numbers guy. I'm sorry, but it's drag racing. Anything can happen. Like I said, number one qualifier. Who cares? You got to make it on track. You got to go A to B. You got to leave on the light. All that stuff. So many things come into play. So the producers kept telling me, it's funny because. He kept coming up to me. He's like, so Aaron, he's like, you're knocking these giants off like nothing. Are you feeling confident? So, so they're trying to pump you up. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
everybody's fast. And it's true. And that's the way I am. And I'll be honest. I was a little more, I gained some confidence when I beat the orange F-150 midnight performance truck. And I knew that truck was fast. It's another all-wheel drive vehicle. That truck was fast. I kind of had an idea of what it ran. It ran faster than I've ever ran. And so, that was probably the biggest hurdle there. Once I beat that truck, I'm like, all right, these other cars are close, Damon's car, man, I watched that. That car was loud. It was, I guess, Pro Truck car, whatever. It was
that
loud.
Car, I'll say it. That was a race car.
That was a race car. It was, and everybody said mine was a race car too. But we'll get to that. But man, I saw Damon's car making passes. I'm like, that car is flying. Like, there's no way. Like, my car's not that fast, And so it's difficult because I don't know how fast my car looks going down the road. I'm in it, so I don't get to see it. And everybody's like, dude, your car's flying. I'm like, yeah, okay. And it's like, no, that car's fast. He's like, yeah, your car's fast too. And I'm like, okay, I can't really tell.
Right.
And so, after that 150, I'm like, okay, I have a chance. And Sean, they were all fast. None of them were really, really blowouts. I mean, my confidence level, I knew I was quick. Did I think I had it completely covered? Absolutely not. After I beat the F-150, I knew I had a chance of winning the deal because I thought he was the fastest. And then after that, it was just one round at a time and just hoping that I had just enough. Yeah.
Damon's car, like that car came out of nowhere. I think he debuted that car the first time when we raced him in Chickasha. because he was racing Dumplin, the stick shift Chevelle. That we get there, and I'm expecting to see that car, and there's this blue Mustang. It's got a big Pro Charger hanging off the back. It's got a weight bar in the back. I was like, hey, this is a race car, guys. But it was fast, and I really enjoyed Damon being on the show. I think he's a really good character, and he brings a lot of new blood basically to the 405. And it's just cool to see him race two different cars and have so much success with two completely different platforms.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now I had Doc on the show last week, and he had spoke about obviously how close the race was and Sean's decision and everything like that. And Doc kind of took the stance of you don't question the race master's decision and all that stuff. Was there in my mind when I saw it happen, and because I've been watching street races other than Street Outlaws too and stuff like that, and maybe just what the 405 does, but in my mind I'm thinking if it's that damn close, especially with these cars that can run, why are we not rerunning it? I
don't know. That never really came about. I never heard anything. I don't know if you heard J-Rod, but I never once was like, oh, let's just rerun it. It was it was late in the morning already, and I think it was
a couple of factors that played into that. So like that night when that happened, it probably took an hour for Sean to make that call. And I said it, and
I had it
crazy.
It felt like an hour. So I had a 360 camera on the car. It was I had my buddy. I said, dude, that was like 45 minutes. I was with J-Rod. He's like, how long do you think it was? Like 45 minutes. Really? Yeah. He's like 17 minutes. So we stood there. Yeah. Oh, I know. So
it felt like time was just creeping by.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, your adrenaline went from the highest ever. We came back. Our crews or where everybody else is looking at us, who won? And we're like, I said, I think Doc won. Doc's like, yeah, I won. And like, we don't really know. And then it's like, we're waiting. And about 10 minutes in, I'm like, okay, like who won? And I don't know. We still don't know. And so we're just sitting there just waiting. And 17 minutes is a long time. And it got eerily quiet. Like, it was quiet. We were just saying, and
it was crazy. They couldn't make the call. I mean, every frame it looked like Doc was ahead, or Aaron was ahead, or Doc was ahead, or Aaron was ahead. And, I've said this before, but like it just shows you the character that Sean has, because like at the end of the day, it's his call. He could have said, Aaron was winning, but fuck it, Doc won. But he didn't. He made the call that he felt was right, even against his own guy. So it blew me away that happened, because I mean, not that I would think Sean would cheat anybody, but at the end of the day, like subconsciously, you're going to root for your guy, even if, like it just blew me away. But like I was going to say, the reason why we didn't run it back, in my opinion, could be completely wrong, but there was some other stuff that I'd found out later on that day is like, they had heard that the Ryan Fellows guy had passed away. So they were filming that Vegas thing at the exact same time we were filming this. Yeah. And, they had all got word. We didn't know that had happened. So like they probably just didn't, I don't know. This is just me thinking on my own. Like it was already wee hours in the morning. We were probably getting close to curfew, and they probably just didn't want to put another car down the road since that had just happened out in Vegas. Right. So like there's a lot of, who knows, we don't, with my history, street racing and being around all those guys, even before the TV show, we don't really re-race things. Even when Chief was in charge, there wasn't a lot of like, hey, let's run this back. It was too close. Like definitively, like they would try to make the call. I can't really think of any of the OG cash days before TV show that I can't ever remember anybody having to rerun a finals race, especially a finals race.
No, in the 405, I mean, I've watched every episode, every season, and watched it millions of times. Like, so I know the 405 has never rerun a race. I don't believe they've had races where they just didn't make a decision and they just didn't the race didn't exist.
Right.
But it's more you see it like JJ will rerun them and stuff. I mean, there's other things other than the 405 show that rerun.
Isn't it crazy how big the brand has gotten? Like, I just starting, looking back on it, like, man, I remember when I very first heard from Chief, hey, they're going to film this TV show about us. I had a little bit of a part in the pilot. Me and my buddy, we went out and roll race Flip and Chief and Sean, like we did before the TV show. Because a lot of people don't realize that there was back in the form days, there was two forms in Oklahoma City. There was Midwest Street Cars, which was all those guys. And then there was a group called the 1%, which was me and my buddies. And we had Lambos and, Vipers and Supras, and we would roll race. And they had old school domestic cars that they would dig race. They had a list, and then I stole Chief's idea and I had a list. And so it was just neat because when this happened, Chief was probably thinking to himself, man, if J-Rod brings out some of these, exotic cars, they'll just add some more pizzazz to the show. The show is originally supposed to be called Night Riders. I don't know if you ever heard that. So that was the original name of the show at the very beginning, was going to be called Night Riders. And so, like, obviously, if you go back and you watch the very first episode's called Night Riders. There's a reason for that. So, like, anyway, so, like, it was just crazy for me to be involved with it at the very beginning and see where it's at now with all these spinoffs, and they're in Australia, and it's so freaking cool that a bunch of, you know, as they call themselves, dumb street racers have made a brand that has reached around the world. It's just crazy to me. It's just, I'm so proud of those guys. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Aaron, so since the show has aired, and stuff like that, how has it changed? Has it changed anything for you personally or your social media, anything like that?
Not too much. I mean, social media has definitely gone up, you know. As a personally, not really. I mean, like I said before, I've won a ton of races, and it really it didn't set in. I had all my friends and you know, close people. I think Miles was one of them. He would text me every now and then. He's like, "Has it set in yet?" And I'm like, No, it hasn't set in. And most money I've won, that was $16,000. It's the most money I won at one time. You know, I've been in some other big jackpot races and some of the no prep stuff, and we split some stuff, and it felt like just a regular race to me, you know, and I didn't really realize how big it was going to be, like up until like the week of the season finale, you know, and it's like, you know, then once you started seeing things, and it's like, oh man, this is kind of a big deal, you know, and it was really cool. I didn't watch the season finale prior to it. You know, I watched it. We had a watch party, you know, at you know, back home, and just to watch it for the first time with everybody, which is really cool. A lot of people didn't know the outcome. I was pretty good about keeping a secret. That was the toughest thing, you know. Chuck, after I won, you know, Chuck kind of ducked under camera, and I've known Chuck a long time, and he's like, haha, he's like, welcome to, you know, my world where you can't say anything, you know. It's like, man, I just won this huge deal and literally can't say anything, you know. Everybody's saying, how'd you do? I did good, you know. You have to watch, and so I did really good about keeping the secret. But, you know, social media a little bit. You know, I'm trying to keep up with it all. At terrible timing, I decided to try to build another car secretively as this was going on, and just trying to do all that was difficult, you know. And social media is huge. You know, need to engage with your people and stuff like that. And I apologize to anybody that I haven't yet. I'm trying to get better about that. But you know, it's only been positive. It's only been great things. You know, if you read the internet, there's a lot of people that hate the imports. So that's there. You know, I've always been a nice guy, and I always will be. Never really had any haters, I guess that's a word, you know. And so it's the first time me seeing, you know, Lawnmower and that car shouldn't have been on there, and take it back, all the stuff. And it's like, you know, and I just kind of rolled it off my shoulder and don't let it get to me, you know. I mean, fortunately, it was given the opportunity. We were on there. The car did everything it was supposed to do, you know, and just you know, just went with it. And it doesn't bother me. Everybody has their opinion. Diehard fans, and that's great. That's what every show needs, you know. But there's room for other fans too, you know.
And you know, realistically, it's okay they talk some shit, because that's what makes the rivalry even better. You know, I want to see this thing blow up where it's import versus domestic, you know, like that'd be such a cool deal, you know. Like Chuck, I was talking to Chuck about the other night, you know, Chuck's kind of a villain on the show. He talks shit. He don't take anything off of nobody. And that's who Chuck is, you know, and a lot of people don't like Chuck for it. But if you really know Chuck on a personal level, Chuck is a great guy that would literally do anything for anybody. Like I could be at home and be like, hey man, I need like this turbo and this flange. You'd be like, fuck, all right, come to the house, I'll get it out of the shop. Like that's just who Chuck is. Chuck's just a good dude, and I think Chuck is one of those guys that the TV show and the internet portrays as being a dickhead, and that's just not really who Chuck is, you know.
Yeah. If you guys want, we'll take a couple questions from some people. Sure. I saved one. I'm gonna put it up now if I can. I don't know if you guys can read that or not.
Yeah, that's a good question right there. Well, I asked him that today.
Yeah. That's a good question. So why did I choose an H22 instead of a K Series? Well, one, like I said, I built this car in 2004. I think the K Series came out in like 2002-ish, somewhere in there. That H Series was like the Honda Big Block at the time. That was their highest horsepower one. I actually had a Honda Accord back in high school, and that was a direct swap. An H Series out of a Prelude bolts right into an Accord. Same motor mounts, like same everything. You could even run on the Accord ECU if you wanted. So it was like the easiest motor swap to do. And just went with that back. That was in '01, and then had another cord, and then wanted a lighter chassis, and said, "Well, I'm just going to pull that motor out of there." Went into this Civic, and I headed in that car for 2004, and haven't found the limit yet. So no reason to change. I've kind of pioneered some stuff, made my own stuff. I make my own all-wheel drive bell housing. That's why that car's all-wheel drive. There was never an all-wheel drive Honda Prelude. That's my business, or one of them that does. We make that now, so that's pretty cool.
I thought they made Preludes all-wheel drive in the late '80s. Am I wrong?
No, they made a four-wheel steering Prelude.
Four-wheel steering, that's what it was.
Yeah, so never an all-wheel drive Prelude. So just went with that, just to keep moving that H series platform. It's a great motor. It's the little brother of the K series. So to answer that question, they made the K series, they took all the good stuff from the H and made it to the K. The crankshaft, they fit in the same block to block. The journals are the same. They're very similar engines. Cylinder head design's a little different, but I haven't found the limit of the H series. No reason to swap yet. So
obviously it works.
Yeah, it works. Yep.
J-Rod, I got to ask you, what's up with the no shoes? It's
just who I am. Like, I grew up super country in southern Oklahoma, town of a couple hundred people, and I don't know, never wore shoes. I was a very competitive golfer in high school and won a couple state championships and went on to college and played college golf, and I never wore shoes, just never did. And when I started racing more competitively, I liked the feeling of the pedals because I drove a stick car with my toes. I would literally grab them with my toes, and it just kind of became my deal. We would street race with all those guys back in the day before the show, and I never wore shoes. And kind of like Aaron was saying earlier, you just stay true to who you are. Everybody's got their thing, and my deal is barefoot. I don't like shoes. I don't wear them. If I'm at work, I'm literally barefoot right now in my truck doing this interview in a parking lot. Like, I just don't like shoes.
That's great. I had some fans message me yesterday, and that was one of the questions that they wanted me to ask you.
Yep. I don't like them.
So first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. This is awesome. I was also born in 1984, and I've always had import like to myself. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you, for Street Outlaws, every once in a while you'll see a GTR or something on the show, but it's cool to see a Honda, and it was cool to see your Superman. I mean, it was awesome. I'm glad you guys came on the show, and there was a whole episode for you guys. And I can't wait for the future. Hopefully, we get another Street Outlaws 405 show soon, and you guys get to come on again. So thank you guys for coming on. Aaron and J-Rod, you guys want to shout out any of your sponsors or anything like that, or your social media? Anything you want?
Yeah, I mean, you can find my social media handle is JRod_OKC. I do a lot. I got a lot more cars than just imports. I do build all kinds of stuff. A lot of the same sponsors Aaron has. Precision Turbo, Real Street Performance. Brian Crowler, the big BC that I wore on the show that night. Kicker, which is a lot of the other 405 guys. They're based right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. They help us out a lot. One Ethanol, Manly, and Extreme Turbo Systems. For Aaron and I who don't do this for a living, we need those kind of people to help us be who we are and to race at this level, because, a billet crankshaft, $6,000, it gets expensive really, really quick. And without those guys, we couldn't do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of same thing. We have a lot of similar sponsors there. Precision Turbo, Competition Clutch. My biggest one is, I guess, my tuner, Jason Herrera, Stupid Fast. There's a big banner on the windshield of my car that says Stupid Fast. He's been tuning that car since 2004. So to have a tuner since day one, I mean, my girlfriend jokes that guy will fly to the moon for you if you ask him, and when I told him about the show, I say, hey, Jason, and he's been on TV before, and I say, hey, this is an opportunity, and he knows Jared, and he's like, I'm not much for TV. He said, but if you want to do it, we'll do it, but we had done some no prep racing before. And so we had some data, and he's like, I'm in, if you're in, if you put the work in, I'll put the work in. So he's, the biggest one to get that car down that road. I drove it.
It was so awesome to see him smile at the starting line when you won. Cause obviously he didn't show a lot of emotion, but to see Jason get excited, it was pretty awesome.
He was more nervous than me, honestly. We were dealing with some things with the car that we were just kind of working through, and every round win, I mean, he was nervous, and I was just driving, just doing my thing, and he was just hoping for the best every pass, and it ran great. So, but yeah, so my social media stuff, Aaron Lopez H22 on Instagram. just Aaron Lopez on Facebook. I'm going to try to get better with social media. I'm going to try to post more. It's that's definitely something
you
I'm
need
going
to
work
start
on.
an OnlyFans.
This stuff is not cheap, you know, and I have this running joke. I'll say it here live. It's like, if I had a drug habit, I would be skinnier and more money in my pocket. So that tells you how expensive this drag racing stuff is. But it's
silly.
It's a passion. We all have the same passion. So thank you.
Sure. Well, thanks again, guys. Appreciate you coming on. Good luck this weekend racing, and hope to see you on a future episode of Street Outlaws.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and thanks for everybody watching this live feed, and thanks for supporting the import guys.
Absolutely. Thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, guys.
Right,
Yep.
bye.
Bye-bye.